Hi loves, Beth here, and today I'm super excited actually to talk to you about something that a lot of the time we don't think about, or sometimes we don't even talk about when it comes to building our intuition, listening to our intuition, accessing that very, very real voice of truth that we all have inside of us. I know for many of you, most of you watching, that's something that you actually crave in your life. You want to have a deeper connection to your intuition. You realize when you do follow your intuition, or those times in your life when you can hear it more, things just happen easier, or you end up making the right choice and good things happen from that, or whatever it is. For many of you, you'll also want to have a heightened intuition to bring into your present or future coaching practice or healing practice. Many of you are budding healers, nutritionists, spiritual coaches, etc. And when you're actually having sessions with clients and when you're working in that sort of way, the best sort of teacher, the best sort of guide for you is going to be your intuition. I'm coming to you from my backyard right now, so I do live beside a road, so there's going to be a little bit of car noise. There's a beach right in front of my house, so there's also going to be some passerbys walking to the beach, maybe talking a little bit, so just as a heads up, but hopefully you can hear me pretty easy. So what is this thing that I want to talk about that's actually really going to help to build our intuition? It is our diet. It is what we are putting in our bodies, and this is has a huge impact on our intuition. Not so much actually. Our intuition is just this healthy sort of energy. The intuition is the voice of spirit. So spirit's always there, spirit's always connecting with us, spirit's everywhere. But it's the ability to tap into that intuition that the diet affects. So think about it like this. I love this example. Think of a radio antenna. So if you are not really paying attention too much to what you're putting in your body, you're paying attention to it like once a week, but the rest of the time you're just like, well, whatever. You're not really taking care of your body, let's say. So your radio, just picture yourself as the radio now. The antenna is going to be, your body and your body's ability to hear. And if the antenna is not really working on the radio so well, it's a bit bent out of shape, that what you're going to pick up, you're going to try to go to your favorite channel, and it's going to be fuzzy. It's going to be really hard to understand. And that's it, right? But if you have that antenna that's in good shape, you're taking care of that antenna, aka your body, you're going to go to your favorite station, your intuition, and you're going to be able to transmit easily and receive the messages with clarity. So taking care of our body is really huge because it's the vessel, right? So we could talk a lot about just different ways to take care of your body, but I really want to focus on the diet, and I have like 4 or 5 things written down here that I'd like to just kind of plant in your brain. So everything that we talk about in this video, you might not, if you're kind of at the start of that journey of really taking care of your body and seeing that link and seeing how important this is, you might feel, that, all 5, things that I'm going to tell you are maybe a little bit much for you to start right away. And maybe you're actually pretty far down along your path. You really pay attention to nutrition and health, but maybe there's 1 or 2 things that, you haven't been doing that you're excited to integrate. Wherever you're at, it's okay. Just try to do at least, 1 or 2 and make those subtle shifts. But you'll have a better idea of how you're going to do that once we get into it. So there's going to be, let's go over some points that are just important to keep in mind when you're trying to feed yourself for your intuition, for you feeding yourself to awaken that intuitive ability again and that ability to hear. So the first thing that we want to think about when we're eating our food is, does this have life force energy? So life force energy is, our breath, our vibration, our spirit. I'm sitting in my garden right now, and there's like these potatoes and kale and nasturtiums, and they're just teeming with life. Like the earth is directly feeding them with all this life. So right when I pick that piece of kale off and put it in my mouth, it's just vibrating with so much life force energy. And that's what we want to look for when we are feeding ourselves for a closer relationship with our spirits and our intuition. Why are you so loud? That's a loud one. So think about it like this, if you're walking down the aisles at the, grocery store, and you're picking up a package, and there's like this processed food that's come from a factory that's wrapped in plastic. was packaged a couple months ago and has just been sitting on the shelves, it's got a very, very small amount of life force energy. And if what you're regularly feeding yourself is mostly these packaged foods, you know, even like breads that are in plastic wrap, you know, from the store, or I don't know, just all that stuff, like it's gonna be draining you rather than giving you energy and giving you that closer link to your intuition. It's actually gonna be taking energy, and our food really should be giving us energy. So you want to think about whenever you're eating, you want to say, well, how much life force energy does this have? I eat cooked foods, and I find them to be grounding for me and filling for me. But the life force energy path is really resonant to that raw food kind of mentality or lifestyle that's been happening lately. And so I try to eat tons of raw foods as well. So the raw food, not cooked, not processed, just as close to the plant, you know, just eating a red pepper, or, you know, making a smoothie, or having a really big salad with a ton of life force, fresh greens, like all of that's going to be really filled with life force energy, going to bring that spirit into your body, going to help you resonate on that vibration that you need in order to connect with your intuition. Okay, the next one I just want you to be really open-minded to this, because when I say this, sometimes people have a little bit of guilt around it because they know they haven't been choosing this, but it's the quote-unquote right thing to choose. Just let it go. Let go of judgment right now. We're actually, like, let go of the past. We are going on this new adventure together. Every moment is new, and you know, guilt and judgment doesn't have to be a part of this. Just that excitement to make those changes. You know, feel that. So it's about going organic, okay? And this is a huge passion of mine. I realize organic is more expensive most of the time, but it's well worth it. And not just for your body, but for the planet as well. So, you know, traditional, you know, going to the grocery store and anything that's not labeled as organic has been grown with chemical pesticides and fertilizers, which means that your food has literally had chemicals sprayed on it. And not only that, but the soil now has been infected by the chemicals, and that goes down into the water supplies, goes into the rivers, goes into the oceans, and creates these places called dead zones where virtually nothing lives because it's choking out the oxygen and it's choking out the life force energy. So when we're talking about choosing life force and choosing foods that are going to be really nourishing for our body, we have to talk about going organic, right? What might help some of you is maybe just making, if you're not eating organic really at all, just choosing one food at a time to shift over. So maybe the next time you go and buy your apples, maybe you're going to go to the organic section of the store, the health food store, and get organic apples instead. And that's your one kind of up level this week. Right? I don't want to overwhelm you, you know, but going organic is just such a huge thing for us light workers. It makes a huge difference. As well as when you're ingesting chemicals, when you're ingesting pesticides, those are so unnatural, and your body actually really has to work to release it doesn't know what to do with them, right? It's not natural. It doesn't know what to do with them. So it's focusing its energy on trying to release these toxins, or almost worse yet, it's actually getting used to functioning with these toxins and is starting to just create new pathways that are, you know, inherently a little bit toxic. And that's like, think about intuition. Intuition is natural. Intuition is organic, right? It's the life force of us. So if we're filling ourselves with these really unnatural things, we're not going to be on the resonance. We're not going to be on the resonance of intuition. Yeah, so when I started eating organic, I was a university student. I didn't even have a job. I was just kind of surviving off an allowance from my parents. But in that moment, when I went organic, I realized how important it was for the earth, and that was really my motivation. And I did it, and it was totally doable. So, you know, if you need help, and Doreen Virtue says this all the time, you know, if you need help buying organic and affording organic, ask the angels for help, ask the fairies for help, ask for help, and you will be given it, because that is in such alignment, and that's just the way that the world works. You know, when you're asking to come in deeper alignment, you're going to be supported. Okay, number 3. You know, with all these foods and choices for foods these days, and you're like, what do I put in my body? Okay, I want life force energy, ideally it's organic food, so, you know, what else is important? Well, that it feels right. There's a lot of things out there that, you know, people are like, that's really healthy for you, but when you know, ingest it yourself, it doesn't really feel that great. Or there's some people that say, oh, that's really unhealthy for you, but when you ingest it, it actually does feel really great. So it's all about what feels right for you and what works for you, and nobody's gonna know that except you. So an example, a couple nights ago, I ate this big meal with a ton of collard greens, and I like sauteed the collard greens a little bit, and, you know, ate this meal, and then for hours, like all night, my stomach hurt so much because I'd already knew this before, like I have a really hard time digesting collards, and I was like up in the middle of the night just being like, ow, like my body is like, this fucking sucks. But you know, lots of, oh, collards, greens are so healthy, blah blah blah. So it's really just what works for you. That's really important, and that goes for anything. You know, if there's a time, yeah, when you're out and about and you're at a potluck and there's just like this really, you know, yummy treat, and you just feel like, oh, that's like my childhood, like, you know, like sustenance. That was my favorite food as a child, and maybe it's not like the best food for you, you know, on paper, but you just feel a real connection to that food, and you're like, I'm just gonna have a little bit because I feel like it's gonna really nourish my inner child. Then that's something that can happen too, right? So it's just about what feels right for you, and being in balance. So that was the third point. The fourth point for eating for intuition is we want to look at these triggers that for a lot of people actually really weigh us down and are a little bit trickier to digest and kind of throw us out of balance a little bit. These foods that I'm going to mention, it's not that they're bad, it's just that they're common allergens and common triggers, and we actually want to really decrease them in our diet overall. Some of us will not want to eat it at all, and some of us will just want to have little bits here and there. So we're talking refined sugar, talking gluten, talking dairy, and caffeine. And I could throw alcohol in there too, but I'm kind of gonna, you know, talk more about the foods, daily foods, right? So refined sugar is something that I actually do not eat anymore. I don't eat sugar. It's poisonous for me. It makes me feel like absolute shit anytime I have the littlest amount of it, and it just throws things out of whack in my body for sure, and I think most people's bodies. And I've noticed in the past when I've had something like a piece of cake or whatever that has that sugar in it, I feel really off the rest of the evening, and I actually have noticed that I have a harder time connecting with my intuition. I'll go into meditation and I'll have a harder time getting to that place, or I won't be able to get to that place because my body is so like, oh my god, there's an intruder in my system, we've got to pay attention to this, you know, we'll do the spiritual stuff later. Like, it's that intense for me. Probably a lot of you are still eating refined sugar. I would definitely suggest tuning in and just seeing if that feels right for you, to have a decrease of refined sugar, or to even do what I did and say, like, I just don't want this anymore. It's a huge addiction for so many of us. So, you know, I feel like I went through the detoxing process myself off of it years ago, and it was pretty challenging, but it was so worth it. So yeah, the refined sugar, you know, you might want to do a little bit of research into that. If you follow Gabrielle Bernstein, she has quite a few videos on going off of sugar. She did it herself, and she's actually like off dried fruits, off honey, off maple syrup and stuff like that. I'm just off refined sugar right now. So for more information, you might want to check out her YouTube channel or search for that. Okay, next we got gluten. Gluten is a common allergen for a lot of us. Foods these days have way more gluten than they ever did before. To me, it's not that gluten is bad, but what happens with our way of farming now and the hybridization of seeds and plants is our food has way more gluten in it than ever before. Wheat actually has way more gluten in it than it ever did before, you know, say 400 or 500 years ago. So to me, this whole gluten thing that's coming up, you know, of course you've heard of it, is not so much that, oh, gluten's bad. It's just, whoa, like, let's look at our farming practices. Let's look at how we're, you know, raising these foods. So for me, I have gluten. I have bread occasionally, for sure. I love bread. I feel like it's like the food of my ancestors. It really roots me and grounds me. But I notice if I have too much of it, it throws me out of whack. So, ooh, that would be out of whack too. So it just hit the floor. So, for you, just everything that I'm saying for you, I just kind of want you to receive it. Maybe make some notes and spend some time over the next few days being like, what is my ideal diet? Asking your inner self, and I'm just kind of giving you tools. One video is I can't give you all the information that I'd like to give you. Dairy, there's another one. Dairy, my body does not really like dairy, I've discovered. When I eat dairy, it's organic dairy. This is super important for me. Please honor that any dairy that you buy that is not organic is from a factory farm, and those animals have not been honored or respected at all. And even in many times, organic dairy is still questionable, so I still stay away from it most of the time. Dairy in itself as a food is actually a very nourishing, healing food from the mother. But we are, as a culture, have completely abused it. Now, dairy as it is now, and especially if it's not organic, is full of like antibiotics and mucus because of the ways that the cows have been treated, and it's just a mess. So I would highly recommend, and I can feel this coming up for a lot of you, feeling like, you're like, I know these animals haven't been honored, but it's an addiction for a lot of you, having that piece of cheese or that yogurt or that whipping cream, and it's just like, and why is it an addiction? Because it's a second chakra food, because it's the food of the mother, and it's like the little baby, right? And it's like having the nutrition from the mother, and we have to learn how to supplement our own nourishment from different sources in order to let that go. So having, practices or ways that we feel really nourished, whether that's going out into the forest, chilling out with the ocean, having a meditation practice, doing self-care, having baths, nourishing ourselves in ways that are not, putting that kind of icky kind of dairy into our bodies. And the last one, caffeine. Caffeine in itself, is not none of these things are bad, right? Although we're looking at refined sugar, I'm like, no, you're bad. But caffeine, the occasional cup of coffee or having, little caffeine with the tea or even in chocolate, to me is not too big of a deal. But when it's an addiction, that's when it kind of throws us off, right? So, the coffee drinkers among us, having 2 or 3 cups a day, that changes. It's a stimulant. It alters the way our mind works. And for me, if I ever have a bit of coffee, it's like I don't drink coffee myself, but very occasionally I might have a little bit, and it's just like my whole system's like I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe people have this every day. But you get used to it, right? And you lessen the effects. So caffeine is also something that might impede your ability to connect with your intuition, because it's altering how your nervous system is functioning, and the nervous system is the pathway for our intuition to go through. Okay, my last point for you all for feeding yourself for intuition is detoxing. So I went over the last kind of point. We did talk about detoxing, what we'd want to detox from. But how do we do that? How do we detox from the refined sugar? How do we detox from the caffeine? How do we detox from the dairy or the gluten when we're so used to it? Eating less of it is possible, but what we actually, more so need is like a cleanse. That's what helps us to actually release the cravings. It's not so helpful if we're like, okay, going from 3 cups of coffee a day to 1. I mean, you might be able to do that, or 0, but maybe coffee's not the best example because I don't have experience with it, but say refined sugar, from eating the equivalent of 3 pieces of cake a day or whatever it is, and refined sugar is in everything, not just cake, it's in crackers, it's in juice, everything. And then just trying to eat less of it, and just quite a bit less of it, the cravings are going to come up, and it's probably not going to work as well as we want it to. What for me has worked in the past, and works for a lot of people actually, is going on some sort of cleanse to reset the body. And for the first few days or maybe even a week, the cleanses can be quite intense. The detoxing symptoms, you know, you get headache or you feel nauseous or really tired or jittery, but that's because all that crap is just cleansing out of your body. And then once you've had that cleanse and you've been on it for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, whatever it is, you kind of reset, and you'll find that you don't actually want the foods that were so hard for you to say no to. There's tons of different cleanses available, and they're all different, and it's about what works for you. I would suggest, if this feels like, oh yeah, I'd love to do a cleanse, do some research on it. It doesn't have to be hardcore. It doesn't have to be like a juice cleanse where you're not eating any food at all, or like a water fast, you know, where you're only drinking water, or, you know, I find that my experience with cleanses, I've been on maybe 3 or 4 like real cleanses. The more gentle they are, and the more I feel like, okay, like I could do that, the more success I have with them. I've attempted a juice cleanse myself and failed miserably, because I tried to go on a juice cleanse after a breakup, and I was like eating toast the next morning. So I was like, fuck this shit. You know, we need that emotional support when we're going through stuff like that. But what I learned from it is like, you don't have to be some cleansing superstar, you know what I mean? Like, it's just what works for your body. So a simple cleanse might be, okay, I'm not going to eat refined sugar, dairy, or gluten for 3 weeks, and I'm just going to supplement with a ton of life force energy, salads, and all this stuff. And then you might want to do some research, because when our body is detoxing, it actually needs some help because there's so much coming out of it. You might want something like an activated charcoal, a spirulina, maybe dry brushing, saltwater baths, things that are going to actually help to pull out the toxins quicker for you, so it's more comfortable for you. Please do research in this. There's tons of different cleanses you can go on, and there's lots of information out there, so have fun with that. Okay, and the last thing that I forgot to mention, which is like so huge, it's probably like one of the biggest things that I could talk about on this video, is meat. Okay, so I'm not saying that eating meat is wrong or bad, or is gonna, you know, decrease your intuition, but I am saying that factory farmed meat is gonna fuck you right up, and like, honestly. So I really want you to, on that level of like opening yourself up and getting excited about these changes, also really taking acknowledgement, because I know so many of you are still eating meat that you know has come from factory farming, and in some ways has been tortured and has that life force energy of, you know, torture in it, or death force energy. We can't get around this. Like, I'm so excited for you to right now just honor, like, okay, you know, yeah, I did eat, you know, that sandwich yesterday from that restaurant, and it had meat in it, and I didn't know where that meat came from. If you don't know where it came from a factory farm, because that's how rampant this industry is. So factory farming, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure you do, though, is when, you know, animals are basically treated like products, and they go in a factory, and it's about feeding them antibiotics and genetically modifying them so they grow bigger, not stronger, but they grow bigger, quicker. They're fed food that is completely not a part of their natural diet. For example, cows eating tons of genetically modified corn, which is really not healing for them at all. It's really sad. They're cramped into these really closed conditions. They're treated with a severe lack of respect. In some cases, they're beaten. In some cases, they don't really see the light of day very often, especially chickens stuffed into those quarters. It's a very sad industry. It's super sad. And I really want to have a really strong kind of call out here. If you're watching this video and you're still eating that stuff, I want to ask you, if you don't change and if you don't stop eating it, then who will? Because we're some of the most awakened people, right? We are awakening. We are making these changes. If you're not going to say no to it, then how is, Bob on Wall Street going to say no to it? He's not. It's like we need to be the leaders here. And it's just like, I don't care if you're hungry and like there's meat around. Like, go eat some vegetables, To me, it's like, you only have the right to eat that meat if it's been treated with kindness, if it's hunted in a wild setting, or if it's raised on an organic farm that honors the animals as the sacred beings that they are. If you want to continue to eat meat, then go to the health food store and get that really naturally pasture-raised meat. Maybe go do some research and go look around at different farms and see if it's something that you really feel comfortable with. One of the quickest ways when it comes to diet to shut down your intuition is to eat factory farmed meat. And I tell you, the fairies won't be happy with you as well. And so this is about, becoming more in tune with nature, with the earth, with our intuition. So we have to, without judgment and without, saying like, oh, you're bad for eating that. I've eaten factory farmed meat in my life. Yes, I was raised on it until I became a vegetarian around the age of 19. I was regularly eating tortured meat. Okay, and so it's not something that I'm like, Beth, you suck. It's like, I didn't know. I didn't really know. And I forgive myself for it, and I forgive my parents for it, for feeding that to me. But now we have to move on, and I'll make better choices. So same with you. If that's something that you're still eating, just I forgive myself. Like I wasn't fully aware, but make those choices to change those choices for sure. That's huge. So huge. I feel so passionate about that, and anger and all of that stuff, and I hope that you're with me and that you feel it too, and that you're like, no, I don't want to be eating that stuff either. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown of how to eat for intuition. So let's keep it on that like lighter, more energetic note of coming back and remembering. It's about feeding ourselves with life force energy, foods that are as close to the earth as possible, releasing ourselves of those common allergens and toxins that are common foods in everyday life for the Western person. And then in order to have that help and to reset our body, to go and think about doing some sort of a cleanse that's just going to help reset you and create, that kind of balanced body and balanced cravings that we're looking for. And all of these tools, whether you adopt one right away or two or three or all of them, are really going to bring you in closer union with your intuition, with your spirit. You're going to feel better, and you're going to get guidance, receive it a lot easier. So thank you for watching. Thank you for making it a priority to learn more about this, and may be blessed. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and have the best day ever.